But we once again would have to change our foreign policy and adapt the policy that the founders gave us. And even up until the mid part of the last century, many conservative Republicans endorsed. And that is, that we ought to mind our own business. With all these arguments, well, there's a civil war going on there and people are getting killed. They have no idea who the good guys and the bad guys are. There's probably bad guys on both sides, but we have to get involved, they say. But how many times did we get involved with the most vicious of dictators? You know, from Stalin to Mao Zedong and all these people. They killed millions, and yet we did business with them. So this whole idea that there's war propaganda going on. War drums are beating. They're ready to go into Syria. We don't need a war in Syria, and we don't need a war in Iran. I'll tell you that. Advantage of this if we decide to work our way out, which is what I'm working to do. And that is, if you cut back, you don't have to cut child health care, or you don't have to cut benefits to the elderly. Some of those programs should never have been started. I'm not going to defend this stuff on constitutional grounds, but on practical grounds, if you want to deal with this and deal in a practical way, let's cut the spending overseas and try to take care of the people that we have taught for 50 years to become dependent on the federal government, and then work our way out. One of the proposals in my bill is to take care of the people who are dependent and need the help. But I would offer the chance, you know, to change the Social Security system, and for instance, to start off with anybody under 25 getting out of college. Let them get out of Social Security. Let them take care of themselves. Wouldn't work unless you do the cutting, and that's why we have to change the foreign policy. But the founders were very, very clear on this, and they advised strongly: don't get involved in entangling alliances, don't be the policeman of the world, and don't get involved. But their advice was trade with people and talk to people, and not try to solve all their other problems. But today we do exactly the opposite. I think one of the most foolish examples of putting on sanctions, not at the time, but now, don't you think sanctions on Cuba have been long enough?
Amen. Yeah. Get some good old cigars up in
Other countries are doing business with it. Communism is dead. What I'm worried about is the current system of government interventionism and inflationism and the problems we have today. That's our real threat. The countries that we do end up trading with, you know, the French and the Americans killed 1 million, probably close to 1 million or more. The Vietnamese, we finally left. We lost 60,000. And we lost that war, and they said there would be a domino effect and communism would spread throughout the world. It didn't happen. China became our banker. Now we do business with the Vietnamese. And just think of what's happened since we left there in the 1973 or so. Since we've left there, think of what happened with peace. Would never happen with war. So why are we so determined in this country to think that it is necessary? And you know, there's an economic theory behind this, which is a dangerous theory. The claim was that the Depression came because of the gold standard and capitalism. But we didn't get out of the Depression until we had World War II. Now that is foolish thinking, because war never helps your economy. It never helps.
Yeah.
The reason of the fallacy is the unemployment rate went down, you know, because everybody was over the 10 million people went overseas fighting. But a lot of people argue with me about my $1 trillion of cut in spending, because they've been taught, the Keynesian teaches, government's supposed to spend more money when you're in trouble. And they said that if you do this, won't this really hurt the economy? But think about it. If you have $1 trillion and you cut it, of course the people are going to get to cut it. But after World War II, 10 million military people came home. We cut the budget by 60%. Taxes went down 30%. That's when the Depression ended. And it came back. That's But when we come around to understanding that we do have a responsibility for strong national defense, we have to have a strong national defense, but the founders tried their best to protect us against the king going to war. But unfortunately, the presidents we've had in recent history have acted like kings, have not gotten the permission from you through your congressmen voting up and down for a war. If we did that, we wouldn't have gone to war. And if we had to go to war, we'd fight them, win them, and they would come home. War was fought, as a consequence or a sequence from 9/11. It had nothing to do with 9/11 because there was no weapons of mass destruction, no Al-Qaeda there. But when they came up with the resolution, I was on the Iraq, on the International Relations Committee, the resolution said, not a declaration of war, they said the president can do whatever he wants. Essentially that. If you want to go to war, fine. If you don't, you don't have to. And that was how they reneged on the responsibility, which sort of upset me a bit. And so I introduced a substitute resolution and said, okay, I told the committee, I said, look, you guys want to go to war? I don't want to go to war. But I'm offering a resolution of a declaration of war. I said, I'm not going to vote for it, but if you want to go to war, you vote it up and down. Of course, they were furious. Oh, no. And then they did voice vote and voted down. I said, I'm going to make you record the vote that you voted against the declaration of war. Yeah. There you go. But it was explained to me by the committee chairman of the time that they were trying to explain to me the Constitution. He said, that part of the Constitution is anachronistic. We don't follow that part of the Constitution anymore. That tells you why we're in trouble today, because the Constitution doesn't mean a whole lot. They ignore it, the courts overrule it, and it's a real mess. We got into this mess by not following it. We could get out of it by sending only people to Washington that will obey the Constitution.